we are going to see about retina. First, let us see what are the layers in eyeball. The eyeball has 3 layers: the fibrous coat, the vascular coat, and nervous coat. In fibrous coat, it has cornea and sclera. In vascular coat, it has iris, ciliary body, choroid. And in the nervous coat, it has only retina. Let's see in this picture. This is the picture of a human eye. Here is the sclera. The white portion is called the sclera. And the center, the dark portion is called the pupil. And the surrounding is the iris. And here is the lacrimal gland present over here. And here is the lacrimal sac. I think it's clear for you. Next, we are going to see this picture. Here you can clearly see, here is the sclera, which is the green color marked area, and the choroid, which is inner to the sclera, and retina, which is inner to the choroid. Got it? And the sclera, which forms anteriorly as cornea, the choroid forms anteriorly as ciliary body. And here is the dura mater sheath. This is very important. Optic disc. This place is called as the optic disc. And this is the vitreous humor, and this is the aqueous humor. And this extension is called iris. And this green color is the suspensory ligament, and this oval shaped structure is called as the lens. Hope you got it. Now let's see about retina. The retina is a thin, delicate membrane of the eyeball. Is thin and delicate. Delicate na easily odayakudiyadu. Okay va? And it is continuous posteriorly with the optic nerve. Okay, the retina is here, and it is continuous as an optic nerve. Optic nerve. This portion is called the optic nerve, and this portion is called the retina. The retina has 2 surfaces: the outer surface and an inner surface. The outer surface is formed of pigmented cells attached to the choroid. Wait, let me show you again this picture. This is the outer surface of the retina, which is formed of pigmented cells and which is attached to the choroid. See, usually the retina has 10 layers. The outer first layer is called the outer pigmented layer. Got it? Attached to the choroid, and the inner surface is contact with the hyaline membrane. This is the inner surface of the retina, and is contact the vitreous body, which has a vitreous fluid in it, and it is lined by a hyaloid membrane. The next is the optic disc. It is present opposite to the entrance of the optic nerve. Here is the optic disc. This portion is called the optic disc. It is 1.5 millimeter in diameter. The retina diminishes thickness from behind forwards. See here, it's diminishing its thickness from behind like this. Got it? Behind forwards divided into optic, ciliary and irradial parts. So the parts of the retina are optic, ciliary and irradial parts. Surfaces, it has 2 surfaces and 3 parts. Now let's see about the parts of the retina in detail. Okay, the parts of the retina. First is the optic part. It contains the nervous tissue. Nervous tissue, sensitive to light, extends from optic disc to the posterior end of the ciliary body. You can see in this picture. Again, this is the ciliary body. So it extends up to the ciliary body, and this part is called optic part up to here. The anterior margin of the optic part of the retina forms a wavy line called ora serrata. Ora serrata is not clearly visible in this picture. Let me show you another picture. Okay, Here you can see ora serrata. This is the anterior margin of the optic part of the retina, which forms wavy line, and this is called ora serrata. This is the ora serrata. Got it. Next is the ciliary part. Beyond ora serrata, the retina is continued forward as thin, non-nervous, insensitive layer that covers the ciliary body. That means up to the optic part, it is sensitive and it is nervous, and beyond the optic part, it is non-nervous and insensitive, and it's made up of two epithelial layers. The retina, which covers the ciliary body, is called the ciliary part, and the retina, which covers the iris, is called the iridial part. In iris, it is also non-nervous and insensitive layer, and it's made up of two epithelial cells. It's easy to learn ciliary part and iridial part quickly. Compare and learn. That's all. Okay. Next, the depressed area of the optic disc is called the physiological cup. It contains no rods. No cones. Therefore, insensitive light. As there is no cones and rods, it is insensitive light. Hence called the physiological blind spot. Let me show you once again. This is the optic disc, and this is called as the physiological cup. It has no rods, no cones, hence called as physiological blind spot. Next, at the posterior pole of the eye, 3 mm lateral to the optic disc, there is another depression of the similar size called the macula lutea. You can come to this picture again. You can see a depression here. This portion is called the macula lutea. Got it? It is avascular. There is no blood supply in macula lutea. It's yellow in color, and the center of the macula is further depressed to form fovea centralis. The center of the macula is this. This is further depressed to form fovea centralis. Got it? The fovea centralis is the thinnest part of the retina. It's very important. Contains only cones. Site of maximum acuity of vision. Got it? Okay, now let's see about the cells, rod and the cone cells. They are the light receptors of the eye. The rods contain the pigment visual purple. The rods respond to dim light, that is scotopic vision. The periphery of the retina contains only rods. The rods are absent at fovea. In fovea, only cones are present. Cones respond to bright light only, hence it's photopic vision, sensitive to color. C for color. Got it? Fovea has only cones. The number of cones diminishes towards the periphery. Here, the periphery of the retina contains only rods. As the periphery contains only rods, the cones are less in number at the periphery. Now let's see about the layers of the retina. There are 10 layers in the retina. Let me show you the picture again. Yeah, come to this picture. The outer is the pigmented layer. This forms the outer surface of the retina. Okay, this is the pigmented layer, and the second is the layer of rods and cones. You can see here, this is the layer of rods and cones, and there is an outer limiting membrane. This is the third layer, and the outer nuclear layer, and this is the fourth layer. It's an outer plexiform layer. This is the fifth layer, and the inner nuclear layer. This is the sixth layer, and the inner plexiform layer, it's the seventh layer, and the inner ganglionic layer, it's an eighth layer. You can see large nucleus here. And the optic nerve fiber layer, It's the ninth layer and the inner limiting membrane. This is the final layer. Hope you got this. Let's revise once again. It's formed of outer pigmented layer, the layer of rods and cones, external limiting membrane, outer nuclear layer, outer plexiform layer, inner nuclear layer, inner plexiform layer, ganglion cell layer, nerve fiber layer, the internal limiting membrane. Now let's see about the blood supply. Before we go to the blood supply, we must see this diagram. Okay, this is the diagram. This yellow round large portion is called as optic disc. Optic disc. Got it? And here is the macula and the fovea centralis. The retina is mainly supplied by the central artery. This is the central artery which divides into temporal and nasal branches. Temporal and nasal branches. This is the superior temporal branch. This is the superior nasal branch. This is the inferior temporal branch. It is an inferior nasal branch, and it also gives off a macular branch. It's called as the macular artery. Okay, now let's see here. Blood supply. The retina is supplied by the central artery, which is an end artery. In the optic disc, it divides into an upper and lower branch giving off a nasal and temporal branches, as I said earlier in that picture. Okay, the artery supplies the deeper layer of the retina up to the bipolar cells. Up to the bipolar cells. There are several layers of retina. 10 layers of retina. It supplies up to the bipolar cell layer. The rods and cones are supplied by diffusion from the capillaries of the choroid. Okay, the retinal veins run with the arteries. The retinal vein run with the central artery to drain the deoxygenated blood. Okay, now let's see the clinical occurs between the outer single pigmented layer and the inner 9 nervous layer. The outer pigmented layer is separated from the inner 9 nervous layer. The silicon sponge is put over the detached retina, which is kept in position by a band. Got it? The silicon sponge தான் யூஸ் பண்றாங்க. Silicon sponge is put over the detached retina, which is kept in position by a band. Let me show you here. Yeah, this is the retinal detachment or the retinal tear. See, this is outer pigmented layer, and these are the 9 layers, other 9 layers of retina. You can see here a silicon sponge is put over it and encircling the band. Silicon sponge, it's very important. Let's revise it from the beginning. The eyeball, which has a fibrous coat, vascular coat, nervous coat. The fibrous coat contains cornea in front, sclera posteriorly. Vascular coat, it has an iris, ciliary body and choroid. Nervous coat, it has retina. The retina is a thin, delicate membrane of the eyeball. It is continuous posteriorly with the optic nerve. Surfaces, the outer surfaces and inner surface. Outer surface formed by pigmented cells and is attached to the choroid. Inner surface contact with hyaloid membrane. Optic disc, it is present opposite to the entrance of the optic nerve. It is 1.5 mm in diameter. The retina diminishes thickness from behind forwards, divided into optic, ciliary and iridial parts. Parts of the retina. Optic part contains nervous tissue, sensitive to light. It extends from the optic disc to the posterior end of the ciliary body. The angular margin of the optic part of the retina forms a wavy line called the ora serrata. Ciliary part beyond ora serrata, the retina is continued forward as a thin, non-sensitive, non-nervous, insensitive layer that covers ciliary body, made up of 2 epithelial cell layers. Iridial part, the thin non-nervous insensitive layer that covers the iris, made up of two epithelial cell layer. This is called the iridial part. The depressed area of the optic disc is called the physiological cup. It contains no rods, no cones, therefore insensitive to light, hence called physiological blind spot. At the posterior pole of the eye, 3 mm lateral to the optic disc, there is another depression of the similar size called the macula lutea. It is avascular, yellow in color. The center of the macula is further depressed to form fovea centralis. It is the thinnest part of the retina. Contains only cones, the site of maximum acuity of vision. The rods and cones, light receptors of the eye. Rods contains pigment, visual purple, respond to dim light. Scotopic vision. Periphery of the retina contains only rods. The rods are absent at fovea. Cones respond to bright light only. Photopic vision. Sensitive to color, fovea has only cones. The number of cones diminishes towards the periphery. Now, revising the layers of retina, there are 10 layers of retina. Outer pigmented layer, inner rods and cones, external limiting membrane, outer nuclear layer, outer plexiform layer, inner nuclear layer, inner plexiform layer, ganglion cell layer, nerve fiber layer, the internal limiting membrane. Blood supply, the retina is supplied by the central artery and the retinal veins. And the central artery is an end artery. The optic disc, it divides into an upper and lower branch giving off nasal and temporal branches. The artery supplies the deeper layer of retina up to bipolar cells. It's very important. The artery supplies up to the bipolar cells. The rods and cones are supplied by diffusion from the capillary of the choroid. The rods and cones are the second layer, which is near to the choroid. So it is supplied by the diffusion of the capillaries of the choroid. Okay. Retinal veins runs with these arteries. Clinical retinal detachment occurs between outer single layer and the inner 9 nervous layers. Silicon sponge is put over the detached retina, which is kept in position by a band. If you like this, subscribe and click the bell icon for the further notification. Thank you.